My name's Anthony Jones. I'm 31 years old and I'm a professional street artist slash illustrator. So I was about 15 when I started and I was terrible. It was really, really bad. I'll get people say now that I'm kind of talented. That's definitely not the case. It was a skill, something I had to learn. First off, I sort of was involved in graffiti for about 7 or 8 years. I guess how I got started is when I was growing up, I always had an interest in art, and graffiti presented the opportunity to fuse adventure with art, which was pretty exciting for me. And then I kind of felt like the graffiti become more, it was kind of doing graffiti with a little bit of crime, a little bit of trouble, and then it ended up being like crime with a little bit of graffiti. So that's when I said to myself, I'm done with that scene for now, because it seems to be, there's a part of that that's consuming me and it's no longer art. So it wasn't really serving me, so I decided to stop that. 7 or 8 years passed and I thought I'd really love to do this as a job. At the core, when this started, I was working a job that I didn't like. I was a retail manager for a sports supplement store, and it was, is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? It was actually my boss at the time asked me to paint a mural for him at his shop in Woonona. So I painted the mural for him and he paid me for my time and also the supplies. I was driving home and I had the money on the passenger seat, and I remember looking at it going, that was the easiest thing I've ever done, and there's money there, right? I feel great and there's money. Like usually I'm trading that for that, and now I've got both. So one thing that has never left me is that moment of realizing that there's a potential of me doing this for the rest of my life. And at that stage, there was a gap in the market. There was no one providing custom spray painted street art murals. It just made sense. And I thought, just give it a shot. I started a business providing custom street art murals and was doing that for a couple of years and thought, I'm doing so much of this art that everyone else wants and being commissioned for all of this work, sort of executing people's vision. And I thought I really need something for myself. And then that's when I decided to create my own little, division of art that was special to me. I painted a portrait of Albert Einstein out in Corrimal on the side of a car wash. That was kind of the birth of my own style. Well, after I painted that mural, I really enjoyed the formulation of that artwork, the way that it looked, and I thought, out of everything that I've ever put together, I feel like I can resonate with that the most. Painting custom street art murals aside from the work that I enjoy doing, I've always looked at it as art school. I have no formal education in art whatsoever, but I think that's almost guided by a force much larger than myself. So after painting that mural out in Corrimal, I wanted to pursue that style. I really enjoyed doing it. And I guess over time, I sort of found myself putting these portraits together of people that were, in some ways special to my life. The philosopher Alan Watts, I really enjoy his lectures, outlooks on life. Steve Jobs, he's an inspiration in terms of work ethic, creating something that, stands with us all today. But I guess as I pursued that, I felt like I was creating artwork that it was more about the people, less about what I was actually creating. So I guess when I made the move to this more psychedelic slash spiritual theme was when I got to the point that I wanted to create something that was at no reference of anything that anyone would have ever seen before. Because I kind of felt like there was a lot of people that were following my artwork, enjoying my artwork previously, because they could associate with the person that I was doing the portrait art of. So I really wanted to detach from that and know that everything that I was creating was referenced from nothing, that has a real, not only abstract in terms of construction, but also abstract in terms of theme. I think seeing artwork's one thing. That's why you'll see a unifying subject in almost all of my work is the eye. And that's the consciousness of the artwork. Like, people think of themselves looking at artwork, And then I'll have the same people that kind of go, well, kind of on a molecular level, we're all these atoms, and it's kind of like the artwork and us, there's no variation in that. We're all made up of the same thing. So I guess the I is the consciousness of that artwork looking back at you in the way that you would look at it. Around 2015, I had a friend of mine say to me, have you ever tried DMT? And I was like, no, I've never tried it, and I've never heard of it, but I'm not interested in it, man. Like I just don't do that anymore. I don't take drugs. Like it's just not my thing. And he said, listen, I think it's really something that you should investigate. And I remember he said one thing that spiked my ears, and that was, you know, I really want you to consider it because they'll love you, right? And then I was kind of like, they'll? Who are they? And then so I jumped on the net, and you know, if you type in DMT and hit images on Google, it's not the most inviting thing. Like some of the stuff is, you know, these spiritual vistas, but other stuff can be quite confronting, demonic, however you want to say that. Yeah, after me thinking about it for a while, and I actually read a book on it, the DMT, the spirit molecule. There's also a documentary. I'm pretty sure it's still on Netflix. Yeah, I basically had a look into it and thought, okay, this is pretty interesting, because now I had neuroscientists, biologists, psychiatrists, like pro DMT. So I thought it's worth my investigation. And so he gave me enough for an experience, and yeah, it was completely profound. There's really no other way to describe that. Undoubtedly, it's the thing that triggered my spiritual journey, and it just it intrigued me so much that, you know, the thought of self-development, making me a better person, trying to fine-tune this question of who am I, that was all raised then. But that was my first ever experience with psychedelics back in 2015. DMT's one of these psychedelic hard hitters. They're right up there with what they actually do. It's extremely fast acting. From 0 to 10 seconds, you can start feeling it. 60 seconds, it's almost fully come on, and a minute and a half to 2 minutes, you're in the, you know, the peak of the experience, and then 10 minutes later, you're back down. It's like nothing's happened, but you're left with this unexplainable experience that you've got to try and process. The way that I explain DMT is like having a meeting with God. It's honestly what it felt like to me. And for someone that grew up as a Catholic, I'm not tarnishing that religion at all, but for me, it wasn't something that I could resonate with growing up. But I mean, you kind of hear about this Omega, this superiorly divine thing, God, and I kind of felt like that night, it wasn't just something that I'd heard of, it's something that I just met. And what I always think about any of these substances that I am taking is, you could give it to someone who's not ready to open themselves up and who's not ready for change, and that would have a little effect. But in saying that, you could also give it to someone that is absolutely not ready for change, and it being the awakening that they need. So from that night, what changed in me was I really felt like I connected with something that was infinitely larger than myself. And I mean, to this day, words defy me. I can't really put that into words exactly what it was I've experienced. The only way that I think that I can do that is with my artwork. What I'm trying to do is shed light on the fact that people are spiritual beings. They've got a framework inside them that surpasses their physical body. Psychedelics undoubtedly for me have been a huge influence in my life. They proposed a question to me of why, who am I? All of these questions that I don't think that I would have truly asked myself. If someone said, you know, ask yourself that question, it's very different than being in a state of deep contemplation. If you kind of want to reach these states of awareness that something like LSD or mushrooms can give you, we're talking 50 years of silent meditation in a, secluded cave versus I'll see you in an hour and a half and we'll see how you're doing. It's like you're going to face that thing no matter what. Whatever that is for you, it's different for everyone. I'm not necessarily advocating people taking them. I know what they've done for me, and that's where I can voice that I believe that they're really hitting the right internal switches in me to get me asking the right questions, to aligning me to my deeper purpose. I think broadly, if more people had access to these substances, if more people had experiences, then it would create the opportunity to open themselves up, see something inside themselves that they otherwise wouldn't have seen before. But yeah, in terms of its application to everyone, that can be a hard thing to really push. As amazing as these substances are and their ability to transform us as people, our consciousness, our outlook, our impacts on the earth, it's absolutely not for everyone, being how loaded the experience really is. The biggest thing for some people is that their biggest fear is what is actually in there that they're not addressing. There's something in there that's waiting for them, and I think that they think that psychedelics is going to open that for them and they're going to face it head on. And yeah, it's probably going to happen, but it's necessary for growth. People see my artwork, they see my lifestyle, and they kind of like, well, is this a byproduct of doing psychedelics? The answer is no. And I mean, for someone that has such a strong theme in their artwork, it's not something that I do very often. I might only do it 2 or 3 times a year. It's very rare for me because I've got a lot to think about. And like I said, if you're having these in-depth experiences, like if they're really that profound, then we need to filter through them. And that's kind of like my respect to that experience is what do I need to get out of this? What do I need to learn out of this? It's taken me a while to really open myself up to go, I am interested in communicating my spirituality, my experiences with that, and ultimately going, in terms of what I'm seeing and my alignment with my artwork, to me, visionary art only seems like the most comfortable fit, because it's not about what sells, it's about what it says. It's about expressing the most authentic parts of you, despite whether a gallery is going to hang it, despite whether someone's going to buy my artwork. Because quite frankly, if we're creating artwork for other people and not for ourselves, then we're selling off our time, we're selling off a portion of us. I sort of thought to myself one day, what art should I be doing? Because that's kind of a question that artists always ask themselves, is like, am I on the right track? Am I doing the right thing? Because we spend so much time on it. It'd be almost crazy to see your life through and figure out you were spending all your time on something that wasn't important to you after all. And I guess with, me really thinking about this artwork, I thought, what artwork would I really like to see? Because I'm artistically in a position to be able to do it. So really, the artwork that I need to create is the stuff that I would like to hang on my wall. And that's kind of what I try and think about before I put any pieces together nowadays, is this special to me? And that probably sounds a bit odd in some ways, because obviously any artwork that you create should obviously be special to you. But I kind of felt like there was a point where, as much as the direction of my art was coming from me, I felt like me painting and creating some of the artworks, being that I was accepting commissions and stuff at that time, which I'm currently not doing, I felt like other people were driving my artwork in a direction that I kind of didn't want it to go. And that's kind of why I have separated where I do commission artwork and where I do my own stuff. So what I'm actually doing now with my artwork is actually revisiting my past experiences on DMT, LSD, any of these substances, and trying to portray my account of that particular trip. And I've got the sketch laid down for my first DMT trip, which is going to be one of my next prints / tapestries that I'm going to be making.
An object in this mental space, which as culture-creating creatures...
Art, for me, is something that I have and am devoting my life to. To me, I feel like everyone's looking for their big thing, their calling. Undoubtedly, art is that for me. My priority is to stay hungry. And looking at past work, I kind of critique what I've done and go, this is what I could have done better, and try and channel that into the artwork that I'm about to make. Another big driver for me is my potential and thinking about how far can I really push myself? What can I really do? And that's always been something that I've always had in the back of my mind, is being okay with leaving the person that I was yesterday behind to become the person that I am going to be today. So one of my big drivers for me is in my own ability and what could potentially be possible in the future.